Okay. So yes, exploring dynamic forms. So this is a topic we did cover last year briefly, and so what we wanted to do here is just kind of just level set it, just kind of let everybody know kind of what are we talking about when we talk about dynamic forms. Um, so first things first, this is just a bit of a level set. Um, so there's three things to think about when you're talking about Lightning pages. There's the Lightning App Builder, which is where you can build your single page apps, dashboard apps, custom record pages. You can build custom home pages. That's all done in the Lightning App Builder. And then within the Lightning App Builder, you can actually add additional preferences to the particular app. So you can see here we've got different tabs that I can add to my application. Um, but that's the Lightning App Builder. You can build an app. You can assign it to specific users based on various things, including permission sets and profiles. But that's what that is. Then underneath that are Lightning Pages, and they replace page layouts, the good old page layouts, but they allow you to customize things a little bit more. They're this kind of, they call it a middle ground between Visualforce customizations and the old page layout sections. And then they are component based, and they allow you to use components that you either install from a third party or from an app from the App Store or the App Exchange, sorry, or you can build your own custom components and then use them in Lightning Pages. Now, what we're going to be talking about today specifically is dynamic forms, and this is within a Lightning page. You can take your details section and convert that to a Lightning form, which just means really that you break your details page into sections. You can leverage tabs and accordions and other spaces around the page. And then you can spread out your fields across different columns or tabs or accordions within the Lightning page itself. In addition, you get the dynamic ability to dynamically show or hide information. And one of the small limitations right now is that it's not supported on non-Lightning Web Component products like campaigns, products, and tasks. So those things you'll have to figure out. You still use the old page layout. So that's what we're focusing on today is this dynamic forms. And you break out that detail section of your record page and move it into, kind of make this custom solution. So what do you have to do that? Well, first thing you have to convert you have to add a field section to your Lightning page. And then once you've added a field section, then you can go in and you can actually select fields based on the record, based on the object you're working with. And you drag those fields into that field component section, the field selection section. And then once you've actually added those fields to the page, that's when you get access to things like visibility through conditional visibility, like filters, or you can make a specific field read only, or you can make them required. You can make them required on the page level versus at the object level, or no behavior at all, no special behavior. And we'll kind of show that as our demo here in a second. Allison, you want to talk about some of the use cases for this?
Sure. Sorry, just finding the unmute. So one kind of use case would be showing fields based on related records. So, for example, maybe on a contact record, you only want to show certain fields if the related account type is a customer. So that is something that you can do with the field visibility. Another thing you can do, which I try to avoid doing this too much because it can make the page layout really complicated, but it can eliminate the potential of having some validation rules, is you could add the same field multiple times to the Lightning record page and have different component visibility. So making a field read only or required based on conditions. Like maybe I want to make this field required when another field value is X, but I still want to show the field on the layout. You could then kind of have different visibility rules and requirements there. Another use case is component. I'm trying to remember what I meant, but it's component visibility of flow actions and buttons. Oh, right. So an example of that would be maybe you only want to show the delete button for specific users or different flow actions for different users. You can have that on the dynamic on the Lightning Record page layout. And another great place too, especially if you're an admin, is sometimes you might have a section of admin only actions or admin only fields that you want to show on the page. And so you can have, um, you know, visibility to an entire section based on criteria like user, like a user custom permission or user role, that kind of thing. And then component visibility based on custom permissions. So you can create a custom permission and say, I only want to show this field or show this section for users that have this specific custom permission.
Yeah, yeah, we'll show that. I think all of that we'll demo in just a second here. So yeah, there's still some limitations to this. Again, we talked, it's mostly rolled out for all custom and standard objects, but there are still a few standard objects that don't allow you to convert to the dynamic forms. And then when you do a record creation from a lookup, so if I have an account and I do if I do a record creation from a lookup, so if a lookup field on a record, create a new account, let's say as an example, when I create a contact, it's going to look at the old page layouts and use that default record type page layout for the new fields that it displays when you create a new user or a new record from a lookup field. And then if you want to do the filtering, you cannot use a multi-select pick list as a filter option. So I can't say if it's this, this, and this. Well, you just can't use a multi-select. But you can use a pick list, and you can use it multiple times if you have a pick list with multiple values. But if you have a multi-select pick list, you cannot use that field to do your filtering. One more thing to note, unlike the old page layouts where as part of the new field build, it would ask you if you want to add it to the page layout. It doesn't ask you about adding new fields to your dynamic forms pages. So you have to remember I created a new field and I have to go back and put it on the actual page layout itself or the dynamic page itself after you build the page or build the field. And then there's another feature that will show called related list. So your related lists were tied to the page layouts, but there's a new thing called dynamic related lists, and you can pretty much add whatever you want on those. Not whatever you want, but you can have some pretty cool dynamic related lists on there. The limitation is that regular related lists must be on the standard page layout to display in dynamic forms. So I'll show you how to get around that. And then, of course, another limitation that it won't yell at you, but it doesn't function very well if you do this, is if you have a detail section on your page, and then you also have field sections with fields, the system, the page rendering gets a little funky, and it may not be not an optimal solution to have both record detail component and field selection components with fields on it. So you want to kind of pick one or the other. Okay. So let me jump into my page here. So this is my org. This is my sandbox, and I created a new page. Can everybody see that? If you can't, I can't really make it bigger because lightning. But let me know if you can still. Can you still see the page, or did it go away?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Okay. So this is a contact page, and I'm sorry for the smallness. But this is a contact page, my demo contact page. And what I wanted to show you here is this section right here that my mouse is over is the details section. So if you look right over here, there's a page called record details. Just drag that component over here, and this looks like a standard record page layout. That's what you dragged over. What you'll notice is over here, when you click on this details element, it says you can configure record detail sections and fields inside Lightning. Upgrade now. When I click upgrade now, it actually will walk me through a wizard, and will say pick your page layout that you want to use, and it'll actually use the fields and the sections in that standard page layout or in that page layout to build the to replace that detail section. I've already done that, so I don't need to do that here. So I'm going to just delete this section. But that's what it would look like. That's how you upgrade. It's really simple. If you want to do it that way, you can. If you don't want to do it that way, I'll show you how you can do it like step by step. But I'm not going to do that particular thing. I'm going to do this. And what I've actually built over here is, this is my new details section. So here's my details. And this is called important information. And this important information is a field. So you have to go to fields and field selection. And I could drag over a new field selection if I wanted to. And then from there, did I say, oh yes, section, sorry. And then from there, I can add, these are all the fields in my contact record. I could just drag and drop these into the various sections. So for now, I've broken up that big old long record detail page into this section here called important info. There's a section for account details, and there's a section for communication options. And all three of these are just fields from this area here placed over here. So what I want to show in this scenario is, get rid of this. Allison was talking about showing and hiding fields based on certain criteria, and then giving them different attributes. So in this, I've got two identical fields. They're both description fields. This description field is required, and it's required whenever the record type of the parent account is organization. I'll show you that. So whenever the record type account name is organization, the description is required. Otherwise, it's visible. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. I am showing you this description field when the record type of the parent account is an organization, and that particular field attribute is required.
To clarify, isn't it the same field that
This is
you
the same
have
field.
twice? Yeah.
I do. I have the same field twice, but I have different visibility and different UI behaviors specific to the visibility. So if you're looking at an organization, you'll see this one, and it's required that you fill it out. If you're looking at a department account record, it is not required, and it's read-only. You shouldn't be editing it anyway. Does that make sense to what I'm saying? Okay, so that allows you to do that. So I have them both on here, but they have different visibility requirements. Visibility requirements, and then they have different UI behaviors. They behave differently. For this one, this section here, account details, I'm actually pulling fields not from the contact, but I pulled them from a drill down. Where I drill into the account name, and then that shows me account fields related to the contact that I'm looking at. So in this section, I pulled in the department code, the industry of the account's record type, the account budget, and the account type. And you'll notice that those fields are not editable because they're on a related object. They're on the account, related to the account. So they're not actually editable. Here, you couldn't edit the account from the contact, but you'd have to go to the contact to make that edit. But you could change what account is associated to it. So if you can see here that I've got account name there. But that's a new feature of this recent release, is that you can actually drill into those relationships that you have to get other fields out and pull those over. I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago as well. And then finally, another piece for the Lightning record page in general is I've created this section here called Do Not Call. And I've got component visibility that says if the do not call is true, then show this text. Otherwise, do not show the text. So the user would see this text if the do not call flag was checked. If it's not checked, then they wouldn't see it. Okay, and now looking over here, this is the old related list section. So this is kind of out of the box. If you were to convert, you're doing that conversion from an old contact page layout to the dynamic pages. This is the old related list, and it's just pulling the related list that you have on the page layout here. Well, what I'm able to do is I want to go ahead and delete that. And I've actually set up a related list down here. And I just have one related list in this scenario. So let's look for related. So when you do a dynamic related list, you can do a single. And what that allows you to do is, it's obviously related to the record that you're looking at, but it says use this contact, and you could get other options, like you can use an account specific, you can use an individual, or you can do reports to. These are lookup fields, right? I want to get a related accounts. I want to get cases associated with the contact, any relationship you have. So right, these are your related lists that are available to you, but I could pull cases. Let me pull a new one here, dynamic related list. I'm going to use this contact. I'm going to use cases in this scenario. And then I'm going to, so these are the cases that this contact is a part of, is a member of. And then you can add your columns and fields, or columns here. And you can also do sorting with this dynamic related list. These are things you could not do in the old style. You can do sorting, you can have a default sort order, you could add filters again, you can filter this list. So if I only want to see the cases are, where the case or closed is false, I only want to see cases that are open for this particular user. That would filter that there. And then if I want to also give new actions, like if I want to allow the user to create a new case from within this little window, they can do that with the new button, or they could do change owner, new child case. I can add these additional actions. So you get a lot more control over what your related list can and cannot, or how you can control your related list for your users. And I can make this cases. I can make this, I could filter the visibility of this if I really wanted to. I could say, I don't need to show cases. I don't need to show this related list if the account, let's just say, if the department if they're on the do not call list. Let's say if do not call equals true. Do not call equals false. If do not call equals false, then show the thing. Yeah. So people who are check the box will not see cases. People who haven't checked the box will see their active cases. Those are two things. The last thing here I wanted to show is that I've got this flow here called get help. And this particular flow is just calling a flow that we've created. It's a single column flow. I am passing the case record ID into the flow. There's a variable in the flow that needs that record ID. So I can pass that over. I can choose to not pass it over if I want to. And then again, I'm only going to show this get help, this flow, to users who have the permission Amerispeak in this scenario. So that is how you can use this dynamic section, these dynamic forms, these dynamic sections to make your pages load faster and give your users a little more useful information, hopefully useful information. Put the things that are important to you, to them, in front of them when they need it. So if you have an opportunity and you're at a different stage, maybe you hide various sections based on the stage that the opportunity is on. If you've got an account that's a customer, Allison was saying, if you got a customer account, you show certain things versus an organization or not a customer, you might show different types of information, things like that. So let me see. So that is that. Let me stop sharing. So let's open it up for some questions and comments. Would anybody like to share?
We have a question.
Yes.
So being able to filter and sort the list views is pretty cool. Um, if I filter out like inactive records, whatever that might be, can the user go in there and remove that filter, or is it embedded?
No, the filter is set by the page administrator. So if as long as you have, as long as you set that up let me see, as long as they can't edit the page, they cannot change the filter visibility of those.
And I'm guessing the answer is no, but is there any way to use dynamic fields to basically replace the functionality of field dependencies? So if this value is set, show these pick list values.
So pick list, specifically pick list values, yes, no, like, if this is set, then show me these 5 versus show me all 10.
Yeah.
No, you can't do
Okay.
pick list filtering from that, as far as I know. But you can show hide fields. If one field is
Yeah.
false, then you can show another field. But the sub contents of the pick list field, you cannot do that yet. Maybe.
I have a quick question. Is the goal of this from Salesforce to kind of make it so there's only a single page per object? In a lot of ways, I guess.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot more flexible. Yeah, Allison?
Yeah, I would say yeah for the most part. I guess you could maybe need a different Lightning record page if you wanted a different layout. Like, I want the details section to be in a different place for these users than for these users. But for the most part, it is meant to reduce the number of page layouts that you would need greatly, as well as like a lot of things like potentially like validation rules, potentially even formula fields, because you can bring a field from a related object onto a dynamic page. So there's lots of other things you can eliminate potentially by moving to dynamic forms.
Yeah, I think it allows also for users, for you to set up your pages to be more catered to how a user works through a certain type of record. Like, your SDR or your outbound sales teams, callers might actually need a specific might need their own page view because you put different types of columns in different places, right? Like Alice was saying, like the overall page layout that we showed in the beginning, where it has like left side and a small left side and a big right side, or 3 columns or one big column, or those are really the only limitations, are some of the limitations that you would run into, because you can only have one style on your page. So if you needed multiple styles, if you need a 3-column layout for a particular group, then they would definitely need their own custom dynamic page. But if everybody else just needs the left column, the big right column, then you can just build that up and filter and show things.
That totally makes sense. One more question for you. In the demo, you showed the UI behavior, like for like required or not required. Now, how does that relate to like having like a field required on like the field level? Is that something that Salesforce is trying to move away from, and they're going more to the UI based, or is it just UI based seems so much more, I guess, dynamic for one, but like just more functional? Because I run into this a lot where like I'd like it to be required for certain individuals but not for others. Is that going to go away in the future? I guess. What are your thoughts there?
I would argue, like from an architectural point of view, they're very different use cases. One, you're talking about like if you start getting into like some hardcore like development or architectural stuff, you start talking about like the different layers of your system. You have like the application layer, you have like the server layer and stuff like that. And you're talking about like 2 very different use cases. Having kind of like the required field at the database server level is something that's like kind of a need, especially if you look at like tools like, I don't know, I forget the company you used to work at, Allison, like that. Like there was so many things that like, because remember, you have to imagine like you still have you still have other applications, you still have integrations that are completely bypassing your UI UX layer and are talking like directly to like the DB layer or like the API, if you, like however you want to handle that, right? And those need to like there are certain things that need to have that kind of like database level enforcement, whereas this dynamic form you're talking about like a user level enforcement. So I think they are two very separate things, and you know, without diving into like you know, all architecture is people's opinions and all that kind of jazz. Like there's no like one true best architecture type of way, but without diving too deep into that, I think you should keep in mind that they're very different use cases and very different tools, and not try and replace one with the other.
No, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of a follow-up question in regards to that. How would the UI required field relate to like a screen flow?
So anything on the UI that you see there in that is going to be only when you do the edit. If I edit that screen, if I edit that page, if you're building a screen flow, there will not, it does, unless you make that field also required in your flow, it would not be required. So
Okay.
if the user had that by, you know, if the user, you know, screamed through your flow and you didn't have anything required, whatever you presented at the end, you know, they would process the database accordingly. It would not be. Now, if it was at the field level, like Dan was saying, if you had that required at the field level, then you would, at the end of your screen flow, when you did your commit, you would get that error that says a field is required, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, thank
It's
you.
the same as even like to just regular page layouts today. You can make a field required on the layout, but a screen flow doesn't make it required unless it's required in the screen flow.
All right. Other comments, questions, concerns,
I was
thoughts?
gonna
Does anybody go ahead?
I was gonna say one of the ways you can kind of try and help wrap your brain around that is a screen flow is its own unique interaction, like transaction within the system. And when you press save on the record, that's a completely separate and unique transaction in the system. And so that's the reason why like your screen flow can bypass like almost everything that's on your like UI level enforcement, because at the end of that screen flow you have the little like box that says like hit the database, whereas on the screen you press the save button which says go hit the database, and it then checks to make sure that the UI rules are enforced. Just like in your screen flow, you can make things required that aren't required on like the page.
Yeah, and I think a lot for some of us, for myself specifically, one of the things that we've moved towards is heavier and heavier use of screen flows to capture data dependent on what type of what the user is trying to do. So we've created a lot of these screen flow wizards that require the user to go through a series of steps, and fields that are required there, and fields that are not required at that particular time are not required, but they might be required in another screen flow later on down the workflow. So, and then at the end of all of that is the page is displayed, but all the fields are read only because they should have been set in the screen flow. And that's how we kind of control some of our use cases, our users in that way as well.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Does anybody have any cool lightning web components that they could add, that they add to their pages, or anything that's useful, that might be useful for other users. We have one called hierarchy view that on the account level shows the hierarchy of, higher level without us having to go and create a bunch of hierarchy fields or a parent field. But we have that on our particular pages. But are there any? I was wondering if anybody had run it into anything that they either developed themselves or found in this app exchange.
We have a few like simple use cases that we've done. For example, there's a self lookup on one of our objects, and but the field that connects the object to the record to another record only shows up if a pick list is set to a particular option elsewhere in the page. And then also related to hierarchy, we use a third-party app exchange. I think it's called Hierarchy View. And so that's a separate component on our Lightning record page, but it kind of takes up a lot of real estate if there isn't a hierarchy in place. So I have it so that the Lightning component that shows the hierarchy only appears on the record page if the record is a part of a hierarchy. Otherwise, it's hidden.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And the new visibility really makes some of these things incredibly useful in that way. Because there's no need to show that if it doesn't. In the past, if you will, everybody got that.
Yeah.
Or not. Yeah.
There's one org that I work with a little bit. I work full time for a particular organization, but then there's another organization that I work with sometimes, and they used to use record types very heavily because record types was the way to control page layouts. And they're working with a new admin, and I've kind of given them the advice that in order to move off of having so many record types, that they could sort of just do a full audit analysis of, okay, so like what are the fields that should show up on the page that maybe don't have to be segmented out by record types, but instead could be segmented out by other field values. And I think it's going to take a lot of work for them to kind of think through that, but ultimately I think it's going to leave a lot less technical debt for them, because that is one kind of annoying thing, is that if you do want to control fields on the Lightning record page via record type, it's kind of like several menu options in, and you have to do it for every single field. So it's kind of annoying to set up field views via record types now. So it seems like it's sort of encouraging us to think of new ways about how to display information.
Yeah, one of the things when I was doing I was building out that custom page demo element, I was looking at some of the ways that you can filter, and there's just so many more ways to do filtering now. I mean, you could even do it on device. Like if you wanted to say, I only want to show this section for mobile, if the form factor is mobile or phone, you can do that. And then you've got like the advanced features, which allows you to go either based on elements of the record that you're looking at, permissions that the user has, user permissions. So if you have like you wanted to say that, if it's a certain department head, I don't know, I'm just looking at my screen, at my stuff. If your manager is null, then show this. If the manager is not null, then show something else. But there's just a lot more there now that allows you to give you that flexibility. So really dive in and kind of start playing. If you haven't already started the conversion, there's a lot there. And then I'll share the slides with everybody. And there's a bunch of trailheads related to dynamic forms as well that can be very helpful as well. So there's a lot of information out there. It's about, I don't know how old this is, about a year and a half. They started rolling stuff out, and I know it was on custom objects first, but now it's really starting to pick up speed and get more and more functional. And the dynamic related list as well is a huge benefit, because if you have, let's just go for an example, an account record with opportunities, and now you can break up those related lists into 2 related lists. Here's all my won opportunities, and here's all my open opportunities, or all my renewals, and then you can do the value with that in there. You can do things like that. So really makes it a lot more flexible than the old page layout method was as well. And then so Dan is pointing out as well that SFDC Labs has a limit. LWC we expose on the homepage, but only show those to the admins. Limit lightning one component. What is a limit?
Just shows you all of your Salesforce limits.
Ah, yes.
So like everything that's exposed in the limits API, it just shows it on, hits the API and shows it on refresh with little bars to show you like, oh, you're getting close to this or that for the month or the day or the hour or the whatever.
And then Steve, you said here that a lightning component that allows editing a related record from a contact screen. Can you share a little more about that?
Yeah, it was one thing that I thought would be beneficial where you're showing that dynamic form with those fields like on the account where they're kind of read-only with the exception of reassigning to the account to a different account. One thing we use them for in kind of our more transactional architecture is for opportunities. We're kind of a unique business because we're, higher education. So we're kind of using a Sales Cloud instance right now. We're moving to Education Cloud soon, but we kind of have had to find some workarounds to be creative. Excuse me. But we use I think it's a lightning record detail page to allow the current opportunity for the record to be edited directly from the contact record. Reason why is we're in kind of a contact center environment, and the clicks to go through and find the appropriate related objects and then start editing those objects are just kind of cumbersome. So it's somewhat similar to what you're doing with the dynamic forms, but we just have to have a one-to-one relationship, which we do. We just create a custom lookup field on the contact record to say this is the current open opportunity. And if it is, then you can edit it directly from the contact record. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So very, very similar stuff. It's just not on the same kind of forms. It's just off on the sidebar type thing.
And is that a lightning component that you guys built, or is that something you found?
Built. It's actually just out of the box. It's available to do. I'm happy to kind of show you what it looks like if you want to see, but it's just when you're in that gosh, I'm sorry. When you're in that lightning record page editor on the left-hand side, I think it's just called related record page or something like that. You can just drag that over, customize what you want to be shown, and then it's similar. It's like it's one of those lightning update actions, I think, where it's effectively a flow. And then
related
on
record.
So I could say, you've shown me these 10 fields, and it creates a little mini page layout, so you can just add it directly from there, which is kind of slick when you're using multiple objects like that.
Definitely.
I think I have a client that does that because I noticed it the other day. They have it on their opportunities that you can edit the account from the opportunity because they have certain like validation rules on the opportunity where the account has to have a certain value in order for this opportunity field to be a certain value. And it's kind of nice because you can then just edit the account directly on the layout as opposed to like, oh, dang, I have to go back to my account, make sure it meets that criteria, and now go back and edit my opportunity.
Yeah, in those cases where you're doing a lot of editing between objects, it saves a lot of clicks and a lot of load time, more importantly, especially when people are on the phone.
Yeah, that actually is one thing I didn't mention and show in my in that demo is that the reason you have a lot of those fields move them over into small tabs is the page load is one of the things that you reduce the amount of you have the really important information right there on front. If the user's a mobile user or even if they're desktop, that page loads super fast because everything else is behind the tabs, and then everything that's behind the tab gets loaded when the tab is exposed. So you just have kind of that information as you need it. The system is showing it, so it moves much more quickly, especially in Chrome, which is huge resource hog.
So is that the same, Michael, as what we use, like sections on our page layout, and we encourage people to suppress those sections because the page is loaded faster. So it's similar, like if it's not displayed at load, it just runs faster.
Right. Like if you have the section with the little triangle and it kind of shrinks it down, same as the same scenario. So if accordion and tabs, every time they load on request, basically, whenever you expose that information, expose those fields or those sections. So anything you've got minimized doesn't load on the page load. And then Christina had a note here as well. She's talking about the flows, where you can set your screen flows and other flows. But set your screen flows to run as access all data, your sharing model. I know some people don't love that, but it is doable, and there's one way that we particularly get around the fact that some of our users do not have access to opportunities, but we are updating opportunities in the background. So we run some of our flows as access all data, and the users can make an adjustment to this particular record, and then this behind the scenes, that opportunity record gets updated with a new value or something like that that they just would never see or have access to, because it would just open up a can of worms if I said, here's an opportunity over here, and here's the related child record that needs to be updated over there. Like, it's just a nightmare. But yeah,
Our number one issue, and the reason we started using that, was that we have a bunch of sales reps who are notoriously bad at like following instructions. They'll fill out a couple of fields and be like, okay, I'm good. And then they send it in. And so we're like, okay, well, if we just take away your ability to just hit the new button and send you through a guided flow, then you always fill it out correctly. And same with their support staff, because we work with a lot of agencies and their support staff will enter records for them. So we can actually guide them through the process and really minimize the number of errors that they make. And by not giving them the ability to create new or create new under a certain record type, it offloads a lot of work from our plate.
Totally agree with that. That is, yes, great use. We'll definitely have to have a screen flows session. Maybe not soon, but there's a lot there. But some of those things that we've all been doing over the last few years. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments, or something like to share? Let me check the notes. Okay, we're looking good. So next week we're going to have another office hours. I don't have a topic of focus just yet, so it may just be Q&A or it may just be something else. But Alice and I will put our heads together, see if we can come up with something. However, on the 21st, is that the right date? Yes, the 21st, the Wednesday. One of our users, Bobby, is Smollett, is going to be sharing. So he's in the process of converting many of his API integration users over to the new API profile, the API integration profile. So he's going to be sharing with us some of the things that he has, some of his findings over the last, he says he has about 15 to 20 API integrations he needs to get moved over. So he's been doing that steadily over the last few weeks. And he's going to share some of the things that he's learned from that. So that'll be the 21st at 5 o'clock. When it's a Wednesday. So we'll get that invite out there as well. So we'd like you to, if you can join, that'd be great. We'll share that information with you as well. And yeah, looking for tips and tricks on how to get your API integration user set up efficiently, correctly, etc.
And if you've gone through that transition as well and have your own learnings, yeah, definitely come and share, because it's more meant to be an open conversation than like a presentation per se. So
yeah, definitely a conversation. All right, so I guess we can wrap it up.